Menace Clements, former UFC fighter. I'm here with the fight physician.
My name is Dr. Faisal Rahman. I'm a professor of medicine, a kidney specialist, and a ringside physician, often when the UFC comes to Ontario.
So I want to find out some facts here. So if you're going to have an opinion, just make it an educated one. So let's ask the doctor his opinion on what's going on in the Olympics today with this female boxing situation.
So as you guys know, there's a female boxer by the name of Iman Khif who's competing in the Olympics. And I felt compelled to say something and to come here with Chris to have a conversation about it because of all the vitriol and all the hate I'm seeing online about Khif's gender and whether it's fair for her to compete in the Olympics. I think we need to get a few facts straight. Number one, Iman Khif is not transgendered. She was born a woman, grew up a woman, and is competing as a woman.
I'm sure a lot of people are in the same boat as me. First they seen it, they were shocked, then they were a little angry, and now they're confused. So
I think what the confusion is lack of knowledge and lack of education. Iman Khif is a woman. Okay? Biologically, medically, she's a woman. And the situation that she's living with is much different than the situation we've seen with, let's say, powerlifters or MMA fighters who are biologic men who transition later in life. And I can understand that there are some concerns about fairness,
yes, especially
when it comes to women's sports.
The average man, they say, hits 167% harder than the average female. So that thought of a man fighting a woman in the Olympics was kind of shocking to me and made me angry. So I'm kind of looking for some clarity.
Thank you, Chris. No, absolutely. And you know, when you look back in history, when you look at Fallon Fox, who was a transgendered female fighter who was knocking out women, you know, she grew up a biologic man for several years before transitioning and had the muscle development and bone structure of a strong male. And there was some serious damage happening in some of those fights. That is not the case with Iman Khif. She lives with something called differences in sex development. And what happens is, at the time of conception and then as the fetus is developing, there are changes that are happening that result in differences in how sexual organs are forming. And so often what happens is these children are born with ambiguous genitalia, meaning it's not clear from the physical exam whether they're men or women, or boys or girls. And because of that, physicians and the family have to do a lot of investigations, including both physical examination, imaging testing, and other things to try and determine what best gender to assign that infant to. And that requires a lot of work, a lot of investigations, and it's something that's not easily done. But with the best medical advice out there, the decision is made, and then the baby is brought up as a girl or a boy based on best medical evidence.
Now, the big question is, does she have unfair advantages because she has testosterone like a man may say?
So I think we don't have enough information. You cannot rely on testosterone levels as an estimate of advantage. Testosterone levels fluctuate during the course of the day. They fluctuate quite a bit in between individuals and within one individual. And so looking at a spot testosterone level, I don't think is a fair way of doing an assessment. For example, even between male athletes, some athletes may have at one time a higher testosterone level than another, and that's natural. And does that mean that that other individual has an advantage? Another example of that would be, you know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar may have had amazing levels of growth hormone that his pituitary was releasing as he was growing up as a child compared to me. Does that mean that he should not compete in basketball against me because of that? So we all are different as human beings, and I think those differences make us different, but are we going to start banning individuals based on those types of differences? And I think that's the slippery slope we run into. I do think this is way different from biological males who transition later in life to women, because they have significant advantages when it comes to so many different aspects that I think it's actually dangerous and unfair to allow those individuals to compete in women's sports. But I don't think the Iman Khif situation is the same at all. She's had 51 fights. She lost 9 of them. She's competing against women her whole life. She's been brought up as a woman her whole life. She is a woman, and I think we need to respect her like that. And I feel that when I see Fox News and I see Riley Gaines comparing her to glorifying the assault of women by men, that's horrible. And that's unfair to Iman Khif, and she needs our support. More recently, she was fighting that Italian boxer, Angela Carini, and just horrible in terms of how the world viewed that fight, and what, again, Iman Khif had to go through. In fact, people are politicizing this now. The International Olympic Committee is fighting with the international boxing authorities, and in fact, recently, I don't know if you saw this on the news, the IBA is giving Angela Carini $50,000. Why is an amateur boxing association giving one Olympic athlete $50,000 when there's so many unprivileged women who need to have better access to the sport of boxing? Why are they not spending that money in the development of those programs? Why are they politicizing this and giving an athlete who refused to shake the hand of Iman Khif after the bout $50,000? It really boggles the mind.
Yeah, at first I was shocked, and I only seen headlines, not being informed. So I'm glad you came forward and filled me in some information, because I was just seeing headline after headline of a trans male and man beats up woman, and it made me angry at first. So now, knowing the facts, I'm in support of her, because I know how hard she would have to work to make it to the Olympic level. So to discredit her because she was born with something that was under control and not a choice, I think she deserves our support.
This has happened with other athletes. I don't know if you remember the South African sprinter, Caster Semenya. So she was born with a condition called 5-alpha hydroxylase, I think type 2 deficiency, which resulted again in ambiguous genitalia. And again, with the doctors and with her family, she was brought up as a girl from that point on. And she, to this day, is fighting for the recognition that she's a woman. She is a woman, but she's fighting for that recognition. And she was dealing with this years ago when she competed in sprinting at the Olympics. So, God makes us all different, and we have to celebrate those differences. We have to also ensure that sports, especially women in sports, is a fair environment for everyone to compete in. But I do not believe the Iman Khif situation is the same as, let's say, what we've seen in some powerlifting or in swimming competitions, where biologic men are transitioning at a later age. It's not the same thing, and I think we need to give Iman Khif her credit and allow her to compete in the Olympics. And we need to leave this to the experts. I'm not necessarily an expert in this area, but we have pediatric endocrinologists and development experts who can perhaps enlighten us more and educate us more about how athletes like this may or may not have an advantage. But for fighters online on social media to say, I'm a fighter, I know that this is unfair, and just making that statement, or Fox News to say that this is wrong, or Riley Gaines to say that this is glorifying violence against women, is irresponsible and should not happen.
All right. So if you're going to have an opinion, make it an educated one.